From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From inside the Saints Museum here at the Saints facility on Airline Drive in Merry, welcome into the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Shough, Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast, is Andre Johnson.
Jr.
Do not forget the Jr. It's very important to remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, to share, to rate, to review. If you are watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, get the bell notification for when we drop that
Fire content.
And also, hello to the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Glad you have found us here. All right, if you're watching on YouTube, it's Thursday. If you're watching on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, it is Friday. Regardless, hope you guys have a great weekend up ahead. Memorial Day weekend, holiday weekend. Hope everyone is enjoying. Hope everybody remembers why we actually have this holiday. We are out here at Saints Camp today, Andre. We both witnessed Saints OTA number 3, but it was OTA number 1 that we were able to see. It was a good day. A really good day. We were able to see quite a bit today, learn some information. But first off, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. You know, we're on the road today. We took the pod on vacation, so to speak, out at the Saints facility because we wanted to get this out to you guys as quick as possible because we saw a lot of things. We've got a lot to talk about, from the quarterback battle to some interesting bits along the offensive line, some players who are and aren't here. But first off, Sean, I mean, hey, let the battle begin. We know why you're here. Tyler Shough, Spencer Rattler, we saw them at the same place, at the same time today, and we got to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely today. That was really the number one thing that stood out just because of obviously the position and obviously the open job at the position and obviously the two players battling for the position, one being a second-round pick, the highest drafted pick in 5 decades, and Tyler Shough, the other one being, as you guys let us know all the time, a fan favorite in Spencer Rattler. It should be pointed out, this was a fairly light session by design, no teamwork. They did one 11-on-11 thing, but it was more of a sped-up walkthrough, like a 60 to 70% walkthrough, and they only did one 7-on-7 team session. So what we're basing this on is basically off of that 7-on-7 team session. But even in those 8 pass attempts that both those guys threw, I saw a lot, and I saw a guy in Spencer Rattler that looks like he's improved from last year to this year. Looks much more decisive, looks much more comfortable, just kind of within himself, because that rookie year you're kind of swimming. And then I saw a guy in Tyler Shough who continues to display the arm talent. Both guys are rotating as QB1. Today, it was Spencer Rattler's turn as QB1. That's what we were able to see. Apparently, throughout the week, they've had Tyler Shough at QB1 and even Jake Haener at QB1, who obviously now has the injury and will not participate in the rest of OTA. So let's just break down what we saw. Well, I saw the makings of a competition, a good quarterback competition. It's going to keep us dialed in throughout the offseason because it can get a little boring at times, but not this year.
Not this summer.
This quarterback competition is going to be 2 guys that are going to be eager for the competition, embracing the opportunity. In fact, you know, a question was worded to Tyler Shough in the press conference or the Q&A we did with him after. I don't remember who exactly asked it, but like, you know, it's kind of light right now. Maybe not the competition is so heated up, but you know, are you kind of taking advantage of that? He goes, no. I'm competing every day. We're competing every day, and that's really the mentality that they have to have. But back to what we saw on the field during that 7-on-7 session. The ball did not touch the ground when Spencer Rattler threw it.
8 for 8?
He was 8 for 8. Couple of plays where he had to kind of break it to the outside and kind of reset the play a little bit, and mostly shorter stuff, but I thought his 2 best throws came in it was 4, then 4, then 4, then 4. So it was each guy had 2 sets of 4, call it that. The 2 best throws that I saw, though, was him in that second round, that second session where he hits Chris Olave on about a 12 to 15-yard dig route over the middle of the field, just really decisive, looking to his left, coming back to his right, hitting that dig route right over the middle of the field. Again, it's 7-on-7. There's no rush. They had kind of a weird delayed rush type thing, which I've never seen during 7-on-7, but nonetheless, he made the completion. Very next play, drops back, same decisive manner. Michael Jacobson, the tight end, who was on the practice squad last year, runs down the seam, kind of looks to his right, then comes back to his left, throws a dart, makes the completion. It really was an impressive throwing session for Spencer Rattler. So he certainly took advantage of the opportunity, and he took advantage of the opportunity with us watching because it was his day where the media were out here, so this is obviously the biggest thing we're going to talk about. But Tyler Shough came to play as well.
Oh, yeah.
He was 7 of 8 during 7-on-7. His only incompletion was on one of those plays where he kind of flushed the pocket, scrambled out to his right, and then kind of threw it deep. It was broken up at the last second. So ultimately, that was his only incompletion of the day. But he had the biggest completion of the day when they ran a double move, pump fake, sluggo route, which is a slant and go to who else? Rashid Shaheed, the guy that can get behind the defense, that can stretch the defense, launched it about 50 yards in the air. Hit him in stride. It was the biggest completion of the day. It was a nice little exclamation point for him, and a nice little exclamation point on this is going to be a real competition. And I felt like we talked to Tyler afterwards. I asked him about that play. He said, we've kind of been working on that, a lot of shorter stuff, and we got a chance to kind of really pump fake. And he, Rashid is so good at that kind of jab step in, and then he's gone. Because if you take a false step as a cornerback, Rashid Shaheed, it is absolutely over, and he put it, where it needed to be. So it was a huge completion, and it was really a fun watch, even though it was fairly short. I thought the pacing was really quick. I thought they moved in and out really well. And I think both guys feel like you could tell Shough's an older rookie. In fact, he's a year older to the day with Spencer Rattler, and you can tell Spencer Rattler is in the second year as a professional, not in this offense, obviously, but as a professional, because both guys look pretty decisive, very accurate, and very eager to embrace the opportunity ahead. So that was by far and away the biggest thing that stood out to me today.
Watching the progression of it was really interesting because you mentioned it was 2 sets of 4. So Rattler comes up, takes 4 throws. Shough comes up, takes 4 throws. The first set of 4 for each of them wasn't any, super deep throws.
Yeah.
It was mainly, short stuff. But in the second set of 4, that's when you saw Spencer Rattler make those 2 throws, and they were really good throws. Very tight window throws. He fitted in there. At that point, it was the best throws of the day from anybody that we had seen until Tyler Shough, who comes up behind Spencer Rattler, knowing, and I'm sure in his mind, hey, he just threw 2 darts. I got to make a statement of my own. Tyler Shough hits the pump fake and deep route to Shaheed and hits it. That is now the most impressive play of the day because it was the only touchdown in that 7-on-7 session. And then after that, we got to see them do kind of a walk-through thing where it was, you could tell they were moving kind of 50% speed. It's if you play basketball, when the coach is just like, hey, we're just trying to work this play. We want the defense to be there, but we don't want you stealing the ball or making a play on the shot. We just want to work this play. That's kind of what it was like for, those walkthroughs. And, the interesting part that I saw, or the main difference between the two, I believe of the 8 throws that Shough made, 7 of them were from the pocket. Drop back, read the defense, make the throw. But Spencer Rattler, you saw him, rolling out a little more and, taking a little longer to deliver his passes than Tyler Shough. I think Shough was a little, at least to me, he seemed a little more poised and decisive than Spencer. Not that Spencer wasn't poised or decisive, but if I had to pick between the two, today through that 7-on-7 session, I lean a little bit towards Shough. And then later in the practice in that walkthrough session, again, it's a 50% speed kind of thing. Obviously, nobody's hitting the quarterbacks, but there were a couple of times in that walkthrough where Rattler would have gotten hit or would have gotten sacked because he maybe took a little longer to deliver the ball than Tyler Shough was on the other side of the field.
Yeah, it was interesting how it all played out. That 11-on-11 session, I've seen walkthrough sessions before. I've never seen it like that, where it was like a jogging session, and they didn't have any helmets on, so that's how I knew it was. It wasn't a full live session. And Kellen Moore said afterwards that they're not going to do any team full live stuff until training camp, which is different. We are talking about how different things are with new coaching staff. That's different. I mean, I've come to hundreds of these practices, and there's always at least 1, maybe 2 live 11-on-11 sessions. That's not the case here. It doesn't look like it's going to be the case here during OTAs and minicamp. I'll just run through the actual throws. I'm sure you guys would want to know this. Rattler opened with a throw to Shaheed, a little short out to the right sideline. Then he went back to Brandon Cooks, short out on the left sideline, about 5 or 6 yards, or maybe it was the right sideline. Then he had I labeled as a good throw. It may have been one of those weird, okay, there's a lineman there. Was it a sack? Was it not a sack? But it was a throw, 10-yard throw to number 17. Why do I not have
Dante Pettis?
Dante Pettis, that's correct. And then closed it out with a little kind of middle-of-the-field sit-down route to Cedric Wilson for about 10 yards. That's his first 4 reps. Then Tyler Shough opened with a throw to 81. I'm drawing a blank. Is that one of the tight ends?
Yeah,
it was a 5-yard sideline throw. Then a 15-yard throw to Chris Olave on a kind of an out where he kind of juked him and then went out. It was a catch and run type situation. Then he hit Shough on a shallow cross for about 15, and then there was that incomplete pass on that scramble drill that he had. Rattler came back. Those were back-to-back throws I was telling you all about. Open with the dig route to Olave, then the seam route to Jacobson, then a slant to Juwan Johnson, then a kind of a reset play to Cedric Wilson. Then Tyler Shough comes back with his final four, a short throw to 89. His 89, what's that name on that?
I'll tell you right now, 89 is Chris Tyree.
Then a throw to Jacobson on a kind of a return route. Then the big sluggo throw to Rashid Shaheed. Then he closed things out with a shorter throw underneath as well. So that was kind of the play-by-play. And I guess the big picture that you want to get from all this is both guys came to compete. It's 7-on-7 as my notepad falls there. It's 7-on-7. It's not 11-on-11. But you can tell they're kind of going by this kind of incrementally, just, okay, add a little more here, add a little more there. But what I like was both guys seem to be embracing the opportunity, seem to be enjoying themselves out there. And it seems to be, like I said, a legit competition. We potted on Wednesday. Was that Wednesday or was that Monday? It was Wednesday when we talked about
Rattler.
The Rattler-Shough dynamic. Can Rattler win it? What I saw today, yes, he can win it. But he's going to have to win it, obviously, because of the investment that they made in Tyler Shough.
Obviously, and it's interesting, obviously we're talking about two guys. It's not because we're leaving anybody out. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Jake Haener injured. He'll be out for a while. And Hunter Decker's the guy that they signed. A guy who, by the way, Kellen Moore was very complimentary in his post-practice interview session. Hunter Deckers really didn't get any reps in the 7-on-7. He didn't get any reps in the walkthrough. Other than that first kind of individual, throwing session where everybody's essentially just getting warm. We didn't see Hunter Deckers at all. So it's very clear right now, this is a two-man race. This is Spencer Rattler versus Tyler Shough. Both guys looked good. Both guys had their times where you can see, like, okay, Shough, he's still a rookie. He's got to work through this. Spencer Rattler, he's still not all the way there yet. He's still got to work through this. But like you said, this is going to be the theme of the offseason. There's just a battle between those two. And like I said on Wednesday, Rattler's got to win it.
Yeah.
Because if this is close, I believe it goes to Tyler Shough, whether that's the right decision or the wrong decision. Tyler Shough is the head coach's guy. A big investment made in him in the second round, the highest drafted quarterback in the last 5 decades. So if it's close, then it's going to Shough, in my opinion. So Rattler's got to win this.
The one thing I've really picked up on is just how eager to be excited this fan base is. Because I tweeted out basically what we've been talking about. It's a tweet from Rattler and Shough having great 7-on-7 sessions. I talked about the Rattler 8 for 8, throws to Olave and Jacobson. Shough going 7 for 8 with a 50-yard completion, obviously, to Rashid Shaheed. That tweet's gone. It's getting quite a response right now on social media. So I get it. Look, it's a passionate fan base. They want to believe in someone. They want to believe in this team. And if Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shough are the two guys that provide that for them, then so be it. Now, one thing that that's kind of the quarterback wrap-up, and I know that was probably the most biggest storyline, but the most newsworthy thing came up front, in front of Tyler Shough and obviously Spencer Rattler. Today it was in front of Spencer Rattler because he was taking the first-team reps. That is the first-team offensive line. We're going to go there next. Let's pivot there next. This is how the first-team offensive line looked today. Again, valuable information. Kelvin Banks, the first-round pick, at left tackle. This is the big one. Trevor Penning at left guard. So started his career at left tackle, moved to right tackle. Now, at least for this phase of camp, OTAs, he is now at left guard. Eric McCoy is your center. Cesar Ruiz was your right guard. And then Taliese Fuaga goes from left tackle to right tackle. So that's now 3/5 of the line shifted around. When you talk about bringing in a rookie, bringing Penning back to the left side, and swapping Fuaga from left to right. This is huge because we were curious how it was going to settle in. We were curious if they had the foresight or if they had the want to move Trevor Penning inside, which is where I've always felt like his particular set of skills fits in most, translates most at the next level. I am stunned it's taken this long for somebody to consider this. Talked to Taliese Fuaga after the day. He brought it up unsolicited. We didn't bring up Trevor Penning. He goes, Penning moving inside might be something. He's a really explosive player out of that three-point stance. And if you've watched him, you know this. If you watch just the way he pulls around or the way when he gets his hands on a guy, he basically buries him in the dirt. Now, where he struggles, he He struggles with the lateral quickness when it comes to edge pass rushers, and sometimes his feet get a little when he's on an island, get a little too far underneath him, and he kind of tips over a little bit. But as a guard, he's in a confined space. He's got a guy to the left of him, a guy to the right of him, and he can do what he does best, which is run block, run block, run block. So yeah, it's been that was probably the most noteworthy, newsworthy item today, was Trevor Penning moving inside to left guard, and I say, finally, it had to happen.
Yeah, and it's definitely interesting because you knew with Taliesin Fuaga having to learn that left tackle spot last year, but in college he primarily played right tackle.
Yeah.
Kelvin Banks Jr. coming out of Texas, he played left tackle for the majority, if not all of the time that he was there. So that was one of the biggest questions was, okay, well, does Banks now have to learn a new position? Does Fuaga have to go back to the right side? But Penning inside is big because after practice, Kellen Moore said, we want to find our best five. And I think if we're talking the best five up front, that's your best five. Kelvin Banks, Trevor Penning, Eric McCoy, Cesar Ruiz, Taliesin Fuaga. That is your most talented five guys on the offensive line. Plus, it validates what the Saints have done in the draft the last few years because that's 4 first-round picks. If that's your starting offensive line, that's 4 first-round picks along the offensive line, and the only non-first-round pick is the guy in the middle, a second-rounder, a Pro Bowler last year, even though he only played 7 games, a guy who we saw how important he was to this offensive line last year in the games that he played versus the games that he didn't play in Eric McCoy. So I think that if this is the 5 that you're starting, I feel very comfortable with your offensive line.
I like it. I like it a lot. It was one of the more encouraging things that I saw because I just felt like this needs to happen because it just kind of feels like Penning's been a fish out of water, and now all of a sudden if he settles into that left guard spot, now look, it's his 3rd different position switch, so
in 3 years
you're asking him to do a lot of different things. You're asking him to do to constantly relearn new things, but honestly, if he wants a future in this league, it's probably where he's best suited. And I want to also bring this up because the biggest vulnerability last year was up front because of the lack of depth. If this works, and all of a sudden you have Penning, who was viewed as by a lot of people as one of the bigger weaknesses on the offensive line, if all of a sudden it clicks, like it did for Andrus Peat years ago, who was a tackle, then right tackle, then left tackle, then finally settled in on the inside. And and you get like the composite score of Trevor Penning, that let's say he's like a 78 or whatever at right tackle, and you move him inside to left guard, and all of a sudden he's like a 90. And it's that just think of how much that multiplies everything and how much easier that makes life for either a second-year pro or a rookie at quarterback if you're able to run the ball, control the line of scrimmage, which is clearly something Kellen Moore wants to do. And then if that's your 5, what becomes your next few guys? You got Landon Young, who was the second-team left tackle, Dylan Reduns, who was the second-team left guard, Will Clapp, who was the second-team center. Those are 3 guys with true, valuable NFL experience, provide depth up front, which is not an easy thing to have when it comes to the NFL. So I think it can swing from one of the biggest weaknesses on the team to maybe the biggest strength on the team up front on the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, that last year, all we talked about at this point in the year was the offensive line and the lack of depth. And we said before the season started, if something happens to one of your starters, you're in trouble. Turns out something happened to pretty much all of your starters, and they were indeed in trouble. Now, a year later, you've got, like I said, 4 first-rounders on that offensive line. You've got a second-rounder who has proven to be one of the best in the NFL at his position on that offensive line, and a number of legitimate backups backing them up when, because the reality in the NFL is nobody's going to stay healthy all the time. When something happens, you've got some solid depth pieces around them. So everybody who has stood behind the whole, hey, first round strategy, we got to secure the trenches, we got to lock up the line, we got to make sure the big guys up front can do their job. This should be music to your ears because right now the offensive line is looking like the strongest unit on this team right now. Now, you still got to figure out everything behind them. You still got to figure out the quarterback situation. Alvin Kamara not here, and we'll get into, some of the other guys who weren't here yet. I'm sure we'll see them as the offseason progresses, but you still got to figure out a lot of things behind the offensive line. But if that's your front 5 on the line, and if Trevor Penning, a guy who's physical, who's big, who's a mauler, if he can fit into what seems like should have almost been his natural position from the start, you got something up there.
You brought up it could be the biggest strength on the team, and frankly, it should be the biggest strength on the team when you have that much investment up front. But if you're able to do that and you're able to settle in with Penning, and the learning curve is not too high for Banks, who's going to be a rookie. Let's be honest, he's going to be a rookie starting at left tackle, or if this is the way the line shakes out, then this could finally, the vision, when you make these kind of moves, the vision, when you make these kind of investments, this could finally be the year where that comes to fruition, and that becomes maybe one of the best offensive lines in football. And here's what I'll say. I trust the guys doing the evaluating because of where they came from, where Kellen Moore came from. They won that Super Bowl because of the offensive line, the line of scrimmage, offensive and defensive line. So if there is a year to hopefully see this vision play out, this would certainly be the year. So I'm excited about that because it's not easy to find the right 5, and it's still very, very early. My goodness, there are only 3 OTAs in. Yeah. But if that can be it, and you have 3 quality depth guys in, like I said, Raduns, Will Clapp, and Landon Young, then I think you can be set at the offensive line, which I think could be a great thing for this team.
Right, and now we've talked about the guys who were here, but some of the guys who weren't here today, Tyrann Mathieu, Alvin Kamara, Chase Young, Taysom Hill, Foster Moreau was here, but he wasn't taking part in practice. Taysom Hill, another guy who's been injured, and right now it almost seems like Taysom is kind of the biggest question mark on this team because we haven't seen him. We don't know where he's at health-wise. We know he's dealing with something. We don't know if it's more short-term maintenance, if it's a long-term issue. But I think right now Taysom Hill is the biggest question mark because whether he's here or not could be a really big factor in the offense because there are some games where Taysom just completely takes it over. We saw it when Cleveland came to the Dome last year and Taysom went crazy. He had like 200 yards. We saw it in the first half of the Atlanta Falcons game where he scored 2 touchdowns, and then they weren't the same in the second half when he got hurt. So, yeah, a lot of questions still revolving around this offseason program.
Yeah, the Taysom Hill thing is interesting because I don't know if I sense an optimistic tone about where he's at health-wise. He's not here. He's doing his rehab where I think maybe Utah is maybe where he's at. I don't know exactly. But you talk about the offensive line. Could you imagine if Taysom's healthy behind that offensive line in certain situations? I think if everything were to click the way they wanted to, obviously that would add a huge, huge dimension to this offense. Kamara, I know there was a tweet or something about him maybe traveling. He wasn't here. Chase Young not here. Demario Davis not here. Tyrann Mathieu not here. Who am I missing?
Honey Badger.
Tyrann Mathieu was not here. Dallin Holker was not doing any OTA work. He's recovering from some kind of injury. I don't think he's going to do much. Jake Hayner, obviously, not doing any more OTA work after the oblique strain. Foster Moreau still not quite 100%, but he was out here. And Quincy Riley, the rookie cornerback out of Louisville, is still nursing or recovering from that surgery that he had. I guess sometime either after the draft or before the draft. So ultimately, decent attendance. I don't know. There was 90 guys. I don't know. Maybe call it between the guys that weren't here and the guys that weren't working. 79, 80 of the guys probably doing work here today. So that's obviously a good thing for the Saints. And that's what you want. So it was a good first week. We have not been able to look at the previous 2 practices. The first one open to the media, but all in all, I thought it was a pretty good day.
Another thing that's worth mentioning, we've talked a lot on the offense so far today. There's an important thing that we saw during the walkthroughs of the defense as well, and that's the cornerback situation. And the cornerback situation is another position where we've expressed concern when it comes to the Saints. You talked about Quincy Riley, the 4th-round draft pick, someone who both of us believe could probably get some early playing time. He wasn't out there, but we noticed the 3 guys starting. Kool-Aid McKinstry, Alontae Taylor, and Isaac Yiadom. Alontae Taylor, during the walkthroughs with all the ones, spent a lot of time on the inside as the inside corner. And we've seen him in the inside, especially early in the season last year. And he's had a lot of success there. And that's a position that wasn't natural for him at first, but he's really had to learn it. And he's done a good job in that spot. Later in the season, when Adebo and Lattimore went out, we saw him move to the outside, and he didn't have as much success. I personally like Alontae Taylor more on the inside, and maybe Kellen Moore and his new coaching staff and Brandon Staley in DC, he's thinking the same thing.
One thing that stood out to me, just watching those guys work offensively, you see why they need a big receiver. When you see Shaheed and Brandon Cooks and Chris Olave, who really looks smooth right now. You understand the size limitations and why just just from a physical standpoint, you would maybe want somebody that can work between the seams, because honestly, I'm kind of wanting to take a little bit of that off of the route tree of Chris Olave. Some of those middle of the field in breaking routes, that's where he's kind of it's where he's gotten some tough hits. So that just stood out to me just watching it. I saw Kellen Moore early on was doing a lot of the looked like he was the one calling the plays. And it just overall, I think you're kind of getting the sense of a little bit of excitement, a little bit of, all right, thank God last year is over. Let's put all that behind us. You really can't put it behind you until you start the new year up. And it feels like now they're all on the football field doing some work. You kind of get the vibe that perhaps they're feeling that right now. Like last year is over. Everybody's got a new clean slate. The player that to me stands out most with that is Spencer Rattler. He just looks like a guy that's got different body language, understands what he's supposed to do, where he's supposed to go. So I think all in all, it was a really good, really positive first impression here at this OTA.
And he also understands the opportunity in front of him because despite what some people think, during this time last year, he had no chance of being the starting quarterback. We all knew going into the season Derek Carr was going to be the starter. He was battling for the backup quarterback spot. So for the first time in his career, he is truly battling to be an NFL starting quarterback. Yeah. And this time he doesn't have Clint Kubiak on his back pushing him forward because Kubiak drafted him. It's a new draft or a new coaching staff, a new evaluation staff, one that leans more towards Tyler Shough because that's who we picked. So I'm curious to see, not just physically, but mentally how Rattler continues forward because he's got a big opportunity in front of him.
He does, as do a lot of players. Everything's wide open, clean slate. That's what a new regime brings you. So all in all, good first impression, but they still have a long, long, long way to go. It feels like we're overreacting or we're just giving a lot of information. It's our first opportunity to see them. That's how it goes with the NFL. All right, we got to get out of here. For Andre Johnson Jr., I am Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.